Dear you, I'm writing to you from a version of yourself who remembers the first quiet moment you realized you felt stuck, not moving backward, not moving forward, just suspended between who you used to be and who you hope to become. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It wasn't a breakdown or a sudden realization. It was more like waking up and noticing that everything looked the same, sounded the same, felt the same. Yet something inside you was shifting in ways you couldn't explain. I remember how you carried that stillness with a mixture of confusion and sadness. You tried to convince yourself that feeling stuck was normal, that everyone goes through it, that it would pass if you simply pushed harder. But the harder you pushed, the heavier everything felt. You weren't lacking effort, you were lacking clarity. You weren't unmotivated, you were uncertain. And that uncertainty made you question every step you took. There were days when you felt disconnected from your old self, the one who once had dreams, plans, direction. You wondered where that person went. You wondered why nothing excited you the way it used to. You wondered why your heart felt caught in a place that wasn't painful, yet wasn't peaceful either. It was a strange in-between space, and navigating it felt like walking through fog with no map. You didn't tell anyone. You didn't want to burden them with your confusion. You didn't want them to think you were failing or falling apart. So you kept moving through your routines, smiling when needed, nodding at conversations, pretending you were okay. But deep down, you felt like you were waiting for something. A sign, a shift, a spark. Anything that might help you remember your direction. I remember how, late at night, you asked yourself quietly, "Why can't I move forward? Why does everything feel frozen?" And those questions felt heavier than you knew how to carry. You weren't lazy. You weren't lost. You were simply in a season of transition, a season no one prepares you for, a season where the soul needs time to rearrange itself before the next chapter begins. I'm writing to you now so you know this truth. The version of you who felt stuck, they were evolving in ways that didn't yet have words. Being stuck is one of the hardest emotional states to explain because nothing looks wrong from the outside. You still show up, you still function, you still respond when people talk to you. But inside, there is a quiet tension, a feeling that something is missing or changing or shifting in ways you can't see yet. It's like standing in a doorway between two rooms, belonging fully to neither. Your past self understands now that feeling stuck was never a sign of failure. It was a sign of growth, a sign that the life you once lived no longer fit, but the life you were meant for hadn't revealed itself yet. You were caught in an emotional hallway, waiting for a door to open. You felt frustrated because you weren't moving, but what you didn't realize is that your soul was working quietly beneath the surface. You were shedding old beliefs, old expectations, old versions of yourself that no longer felt true. But shedding is confusing. It's uncomfortable. It makes you feel empty before it makes you feel whole again. You began doubting yourself because progress didn't look the way you expected. You didn't see big breakthroughs or bold steps forward. You didn't feel inspired or unstoppable, like people online claim transformation should feel. Instead, you felt still, quiet, stuck. But transformation doesn't always start with movement. It often starts with stillness. You were in the uncomfortable phase of becoming, the phase where your desires were shifting, the phase where your heart whispered things your mind wasn't ready to hear, the phase where your intuition nudged you toward change before you felt prepared. And because you didn't understand what was happening, you assumed something was wrong with you. Nothing was wrong. You were in alignment. You were shedding an old chapter so a new one could take shape. Your past self wants you to finally understand that being stuck is simply the mind resisting the changes the heart already knows it needs. You weren't failing. You were preparing. You were recalibrating. You were learning to let go of who you were, so you could slowly, quietly step toward who you were meant to be. And even though you felt alone in that space, you were never abandoned. You were walking yourself through a transition no one else could navigate for you. That took strength, more strength than anyone saw. Now, I'm speaking to the version of you reading this, the you who has survived the in-between, the waiting, the confusion, the heaviness. I want you to breathe gently and feel this truth settle inside you. You are not stuck anymore. You are shifting. You are unfolding. You are moving in ways that might not look dramatic, but are deeply, quietly powerful. Progress doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it looks like choosing rest. Sometimes it looks like letting go. Sometimes it looks like saying, I don't know, but I'm trying. You are allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to move differently. You are allowed to move differently. You are allowed to move in the small, gentle ways your heart feels ready for. The life you want is not behind you. It's ahead, waiting for you to grow into it at your own pace. You don't need to rush out of the in-between. You don't need to force clarity. The answers you're searching for will appear when you're steady enough to hold them. And you are becoming steadier every single day. Soon you will step into a new sense of self. One that feels more grounded, more authentic, more aligned. You'll wake up one morning and realize you feel lighter. Something inside you will click. A new chapter will begin. Not suddenly, but naturally. Because you stayed, because you breathed, because you held on through the quiet transition that was shaping you. Your past self is proud of you, not because you figured everything out, but because you didn't abandon yourself when you felt stuck. You stayed with your confusion. You sat with your discomfort. You waited with your heart open, even when you felt lost. And that patience, that quiet perseverance, is the reason you are becoming someone stronger, softer, and more whole than you've ever been. Take a slow breath. Let it remind you that you are moving, even when the movement is gentle. You are no longer stuck. You are becoming sincerely.